Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Mr. Prime Real Estate, Ric Davis.
And I'm your host, the Texas Real Estate King, LarryWBrooks.
Every week, the King and I will provide you exclusive access to our network of lenders, investors, and real estate professionals from both the commercial and residential real estate sectors.
Now, are you millionaire minded? Or maybe you're a millionaire in the making. Make sure that you subscribe so you can get connected to the network. And always remember, the Prime Real Estate Network, where millionaires are in the making.
Create wealth for generations.
What's up, Prime Real Estate Network listeners? It's your man, LarryWBrooks, aka the Texas Real Estate King. Hey, when you get a moment, go ahead and go over to shoplwb.com. You can see the Pure Hustle merchandise that we had over there, some of our newer items that we have in stock, and of course, I got all the books that I've authored. I'd love for your support. You have a great day.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network Live. I'm your host, Ric Davis. If you don't follow me on social media, I invite you to do so at Prime Real Estate Ric. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in residential or commercial real estate anywhere in the great state of Texas, but especially here in our lovely city of Houston, you can reach me directly on Instagram at Prime Real Estate Ric. I want to take some time to give a huge shout out to our team over at the Prime Real Estate Network. If you're checking us out live on YouTube or Facebook, man, like, subscribe, share today's episode, because today's episode may be one of the most informative episodes of the Prime Real Estate Network Live of the season. I want to give a huge shout out to the team over at Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm. We're really excited. We're having our annual Home Buyer Summit this weekend. So if you're a buyer, a seller, or investor, tap into everything that is Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm and come out to the annual Real Estate Summit this Saturday. Man, we have a really exciting show. Huge shout out to the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. LarryWBrooks. Huge shout out to CEO Coach Mike, Mr. Michael G. Davis. They're out in the community right now putting the finishing touches on that annual Real Estate Summit, and I want to thank them for all of the work that they're putting in. Today's episode, we will be joined by our most honored Prime Real Estate Network alumnus. Man, this fine gentleman has been a guest on our show before. He leads an organization. It's called Hygienitech Solutions. They specialize in providing healthy homes, the highest of air quality, so that we can protect friends, family, and our most prized investment. I want to take a little time to introduce our guest this week. This fine gentleman is the managing partner of Hygienitech Solutions. I want to thank him so much for making his return engagement to the Prime Real Estate Network Live. I'd like to introduce to our audience, Mr. Ed Kampf. How are you, Ed?
Hey, Rick, good to see you again. And this is my third time on the show.
Absolutely.
First time we talked about dust mite poisoning in mattresses. Real exciting. The second time was creating healthy homes. That was during COVID. Right. And now we're going to talk about mold. Even more exciting.
Ed, I thank you so much, Ed, because what you guys do over at your organization is something that's underreported, but it's some of the most valuable things that any homeowner, any home buyer could take the time to learn more about and invest in. So for the members of our audience, Ed, that are hearing your voice for the first time, and this is their first opportunity to be introduced to you, could you talk a little bit about Hygienitech, your motivation for founding the company, and what it is that you do for the home buying community here in Houston?
Yes, absolutely. I founded Hygienitech 12 years ago. It was kind of on the heels of my daughter getting sick in a hotel room with the pediatrician telling me she was in a toxic environment. And that just led me down a rabbit hole. What she had was dust mite poisoning. And, who ever heard of that? So the more I started learning about dust mite poisoning, I started learning about other factors in our home, which basically led to, the first book that I wrote, Your Home is Making You Sick, How to Create a Healthy Home. Things that we don't think about, in our homes that are detrimental to our health. Plug-in deodorizers and candles and, aluminum foil, polyvinyl chloride, things, formaldehyde, things that are off-gassing in our home that are causing indoor air to be 200 times more polluted than outdoor air.
Right. So, you just mentioned your first book, what I've been really intrigued about, and then please feel free to share with our audience, is that your latest book. Because the reason why your books resonate with me so much is because not only are they highly informative, but because of the region in which we reside here in Houston, the humidity that we deal with on an annual basis year round, we have certain challenges that come with living, owning property in this area that people in other parts of the country may not necessarily have to deal with. So please, Ed, talk about your latest book, your motivation behind it, and some of the information in it that is so highly helpful for everyone that can get a chance to read it.
My pleasure. My book is titled From Mold to Sold, Understanding and Overcoming Mold. And what motivated me to write this? This file right here. This is a file that consists of mold inspections that intentionally failed homes. Who's guarding the prison guards? And I stopped printing them out after this. The most egregious cases where someone hires a mold inspector and they charge thousands of dollars and they find out their house fails. I've gone to these homes. I've talked to these people. Are you having any type of illnesses, any type of side effects? Migraines, nosebleeds, brain fog, sinus infections? No. So someone came in your house if you've lived in X amount of years and told you that your home is toxic. You know, it's an industry that is not policed. We're licensed by the state of Texas, and it's not an easy license to get. There are less than 2,000 mold inspectors that are max, which allows me to be able to write a clearance certificate in the state of Texas.
Right.
So it's been an industry controlled by the theme of mold is gold. You know, you're paying a couple $1,000s for a mold inspection. Are you going to hire someone to come in behind them and do another inspection to find out it's viable? But yeah, there's some, anyway, I would write summaries on some of these mold inspections, but here's this unlicensed big mouth going against this highly respected licensed inspector. Right. Who am I going to go with? So I decided to level the playing field and call bullshit on a lot of these mold inspectors. Sorry. Right. But I couldn't think of a better word. But this book I came out with, really, it's a book for realtors and homeowners and investors, because when people hear the word mold, they panic. There's mold on the International Space Station. Of course, there's mold in your house. It's a very important part of our ecosystem. You open the door, you close the door. You know, it's on you. But the majority of homes that have a mold issue, it's common outdoor mold. There's no need for remediation, restoration. It might be a treatment. But, you know, as a mold inspector, I test homes. I take air tests or swab tests and bring it to a lab, and they determine whether there's an issue or not. And if there's an issue, it's easily resolved. You know, people, I'll just keep blabbing and blabbing if you don't stop me.
No, but Ed, what makes your insightful commentary hit home with me is because when you talk about how industry-wide they have the buzz phrase of mold is gold, do you think is that why a lot of the media attention, the marketing, the commercials that come with mold and these type of air quality treatments, is that why they seem to be so dramatic? Is that why you feel as if, is it all part of the marketing? Because a lot of it would lead me, someone who may not be as educated as someone like yourself, to feel like this could be a really catastrophic problem. This is something that is going to be really hard for us to get past. We may have to sell the home. We may have to leave. And from your standpoint, Ed, how often do you have to kind of dispel those myths and bring us back to our center where we can truly understand everything that you've just eloquated to our audience?
About 100 times a day. You know, here's the thing. The media termed came up with the term black mold back in the 90s. And there was actually a house in Dripping Springs, Texas, that had this terrible case of mold, and some of the family members have died. But one insurance company refused to even pay. So the media kind of came up with this term black mold, and that's for one strain of mold called Stachybotrys. So when I get a call from seeing someone with there's a
Wow.
Now they're on every corner. Why? What has happened? Well, if you're old enough, you remember the energy crisis of the 1970s. And the EPA came out with this requirement for homes to be more energy efficient. Right. Now, I was doing a presentation last week, and Perry Holmes was there, and he kept talking about energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency. And I told everybody, stand up. I'm going to give you an introduction of what energy efficiency is. Inhale. And they all inhaled, and I said, don't exhale. Just hold it. And when they seemed to be getting uncomfortable, I said, okay, breathe. An energy efficient home breathes in, but it doesn't breathe out. And they're building these homes too tightly. Remember when there were aluminum windows and now they're vinyl windows? Aluminum was an antimicrobial. Mold didn't grow on aluminum. The window units and air conditioners, they didn't cause mold. Now we have, you know, central air, which I call mold distribution centers. They started old lumber versus new lumber. New lumber has a higher moisture content. You see, it's raining. I mean, last month it rained every single day here. And what are they doing after rain? They're wrapping a house with Tyvek. They're tightening it up. They're building houses too tight, and also many more water sources in houses now. You know, you've seen these houses with jacuzzi tubs, with dueling sinks, and you have a dishwasher, a water line behind a refrigerator. You have washers and dryers. I mean, there's so many water sources where something can go wrong. So that leads to it as well. But building these houses too tightly is a mistake. The homes aren't breathing, and homes need to breathe.
And, you know, see, this is the great thing. And once again, everybody, if you're checking us out live stream on Facebook, YouTube, reach out to Ed. He's at Ed Kampf on Instagram. Follow, educate yourself, learn everything that you need to know about protecting not only your home's air quality, but also protecting your family. Let's go back to the book, Ed, because one of the things that I've always been impressed with the amount of time that I've known you is that not only are you an educator, but you're also a mentor. You've become licensed, and now you've even started to educate real estate professionals like myself. Could you talk a little bit about your new real estate educated CE accredited class? Because anyone who knows anything about real estate classes, they don't allow you to provide continuing education credit if the information isn't absolutely positively needed in the market. So could you talk about your real estate education course, what you had to go through as far as getting that CE certified, and how one could go about signing up for that class, Ed?
Yeah, well, I've had 40 classes this year. I love teaching the class. And in the class, and a lot of it, it's from the books, where I talk about myths, right. And I talk about facts, and I give interesting factoids. But what I love about this class and talking to realtors is, number one, teaching them how to read a mold inspection and understanding home inspections when they talk about, suspected microbial growth. I show them how inspectors intentionally fail homes. And I show them, we talk about destroying mold and how bleach doesn't kill mold. Mold can come back to life. So there's a lot of issues that I cram into a 1 hour class. I tell my students, I got time for questions, but not stories, because everybody has a mold story, and it's like, I'll stay after, I'll hear them out. But it's just a fast-paced class. It's kind of a fun class also. And I talk about the benefits of mold also. But the most important thing is, when a realtor is confronted with an inspection that has mold, or a mold inspection or a home inspection where there's suspected microbial growth, I welcome them. Send it to me. I'll walk you through that. Send me the mold inspection. I'll walk you through that. I got a call from a Kampf agent on a Friday night on her $2.4 million listing, where the buyer was backing out because the house had mold. She wanted a treatment over the weekend. She sent me the mold inspection. I looked at it and I said, there's not an issue. I would move my family right into that house. But they heard the word mold. Right. And I got on the phone. I called the buyer, the potential buyers that already canceled the contract, and told them, good luck finding a house that is going to have a lower mold spore than this house. It's just, it looked like I'd be happy with that mold inspection if I did a post-treatment test on a house that I serviced. But, I get involved in a lot from the mortgage industry. I'm used to talking to buyers and sellers. But from a standpoint of being a dad and a parent, I approach them from the standpoint of, hey, if there's a problem, it's fixable. And not only that, but here's how to prevent mold from occurring in a house. So it's a moving target. There's a lot of bits and pieces involved in this.
And I want to make sure that members of our audience that are homeowners and never had a mold inspection report understands how commonplace these inspections are. Could you just talk about your workload? How many of these inspections you've done this year and how often people call you? Because I want anyone who's been in their home 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years and have never had someone come in and do an air quality test. I want to make sure that we are as inviting and opening and inclusive as possible. So how often are you getting these calls, Ed? How busy are you being, and how often are people giving you that call for the first time?
Well, great question. It's multi-level, but I'm going to give I'm going to make people feel better.
Thank you, sir.
We did 100 mold inspections last year. We're going to surpass 300 this year. And it's important because a lot of houses have problems, but a lot of them don't. Now, here's the thing. If you've been living in your house for a long time, are you having any unusual allergies? Hey, it's allergy season right now. I'm sneezing. Are you having any type of nosebleeds or rashes or migraines? Those are the simple symptoms of mold. If the answer is no need for a test. None. Now, with mold, you either see it, smell it, or feel it. And we don't play doctor. We're just trying to find a hypothesis. But when someone calls me and tells me, hey, I found mold on an air vent, I'd like to have a test, I'll ask them the questions. Anyone in the house having respiratory issues or unusual allergies or breathing issues, migraines? And I'll work my way up the ladder because it goes serious as it gets dangerous. And if their answer is no, it's like, you don't need one, Right. But you can call me if you do have an issue. I like the business. I got a daughter getting married. I got some bills to pay. but there are people that they don't need one. And then conversely, there are people who I do a test and it comes back clean and they're kind of disappointed because they're having issues and they want to find out there's a culprit. But also, you could have 10 people in a house and one person has the issues. We call that the canary in the coal mine. And it could be the dog has an issue. Pets are very sensitive to mold. You leave your water bowl out for a couple of days. What do you think you're going to find in that? You know what you find in your toilet bowl rim, or in the sink, there's a little bit of slime. But be careful if you have pets on replacing that water regularly and cleaning that bowl. But for the most part, if someone is having issues and no one else is having issues, hence the canary in the coal mine, everyone's breathing the same thing. So let's find out. Some people are more susceptible or not. Now, another layer, because I get calls from a lot of property managers, and they have a tenant who's hired an attorney, and they either are having mold issues and the tenant's not responding, or they're looking to get out of their lease, or they're just been told that you can make a lot of money by scaring the hell out of a landlord. But anyway, I recommend having whoever is suffering take a urine test. Go to your doctor and take a urine test. Everything you breathe in your nose and mouth goes to your liver. If you could take a blood test, but a doctor is going to want to say, "Oh, come in. We're going to do all these tests and everything." But if you just want, to have a urine test to determine it, come on in, pay in a cup, and leave, and we'll have it, in a couple of days. But that really will determine if someone has a load of mold in their system. Oh, wow. So I call that Exhibit A. It either works for the tenant or it works for the landlord. But it's always good to have that checked, because there are some issues involved in mold that regular doctors, and I talk about that in the book. Doctors are either healers or drug dealers, and if you're having a mold issue, then there's a more homeopathic route to go, as opposed to getting a doctor just putting you on more prescriptions with more side effects.
I want to thank you so much, because your leadership as an entrepreneur, business owner, educator, and mentor comes only second to your sense of integrity. And from everything that you've mentioned, as far as inspections, mold inspections, going through this real estate process, having the highest level of integrity is the only way for us to adequately service the entire real estate community. So what you're doing, the members of your team, I want to thank you publicly. So Ed, could you please share contact information, how one can become a part of the movement, reach out to you for consultations, and book your services, sir?
Okay, yes. And by the way, I charge $425 for a mold inspection, flat fee. There's no add-ons. Some mold inspectors, they charge $100 per air sample. That's why they do 20, 30 of them. But anyway, my cell is always turned on, 713-298-1449, 713-298-1449. Text me, call me. It's always turned on. Anyone have a concern, it becomes my concern as well, because, you pay a lot of money for a house, and I like to dispel, issues. But I will say this: if you think you have black mold, then you're having nosebleeds and brain fog. But yeah, I mean, the symptoms are very severe. But if you see something, take a damp rag and wipe it off. You don't need bleach, but just let's not go into the panic mode. But if you're having any type of health issues, then it becomes then we'd be happy to go out there and test. Or if you just want to make sure that the air you're breathing is healthy, we'll do that as well. So
I want to urge everyone who's in the audience, if you're a broker, reach out to Ed about the CE class, educate your team, make sure they are at the foremost as far as education and understanding everything about mold, air, fresh air. And then also, if you're an agent and you're hearing this interview and you think your team or your brokerage would be interested, share this episode, have them reach out to Ed. Man, Ed would love to come in and educate the members of your real estate team. Hey, man, as always, sir, thank you so much, Ed. Are there any parting words or anything that you would like to leave our audience with to think about after this interview, something to consider?
Well, this is the first time in a long time I can't say go Astros, but sadly, there's a big void in my life. But anyway, listen, I don't charge for my CE class. I don't have a minimum amount of people that are required. Like I said, I love teaching the class. I love meeting realtors. I love helping new realtors, market. So anything that I can do to help, just give me a call. I'm always available.
You know, and
thank
as
you, Rick.
always, man. No, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, sir, man.
And tell Larry it was nice catching up with him.
Hey, no. You know, like you said, this is your third appearance. He'll be in for your fourth. So
okay, good.
you got to get on your calendar ahead of time, man. But as always, Ed, man, it's been an honor and a pleasure, man. I learned so much every time we have an opportunity to have these type of conversations. Urge everyone in the audience, tap in with Ed, man. Learn. Make sure you can take care of not only your clients, but your own family, friends, and loved ones, man. So thank you so much, Ed. It's been an honor and a pleasure, sir. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you, Rick. You guys are the best. No doubt about it.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Man, great interview, man. Huge shout out once again to the whole entire team over at Hygienitech Solutions. Huge shout out to the team over at the Prime Real Estate Network Live. Huge shout out to Brooks and Davis Real Estate Firm. Once again, Saturday, the Brooks and Davis Real Estate Firm Annual Real Estate Summit. Tap in. It's this Saturday, Bethel's Family Church. Huge shout out to everybody over at Brooks and Davis working double time to bring that event to you. As always, it's been an honor and a pleasure to bring you the Prime Real Estate Network Live. If you need anything, you can reach me at Prime Real Estate Rick on Instagram. If you're a buyer, seller, or investor, you can reach out to me 24/7, 365. Until next Thursday, in the noon hour, when it's time for the Prime Real Estate Network Live, I hope everyone in the audience can be safe and be blessed.